The war room fell silent as the countdown hit 0. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the tactical display, watching the Xa'thari Armada materialize out of slip space like a swarm of metallic locusts. 3,000 warships, each one capable of glassing a continent. They'd given Earth 48 hours to surrender. Humanity's response had been unexpected. "They are hailing us," Lieutenant Marcus Webb said, his voice tight. Sarah didn't look away from the screen. She could see her reflection in the holographic display. A woman who hadn't slept in 3 days, who'd watched 17 colony worlds burn in as many weeks. The Xa'thari had conquered 400 species in their 1,000-year empire. They'd never lost. Not once. "Put them through," she said. The alien commander's face filled the screen, all chitinous armor and compound eyes that reflected light like oil slicks. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound almost bored. "Humanity, your time is concluded. Transmit your surrender, and your deaths will be swift." Sarah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "We've got a counteroffer," she said. "How about you turn around, go home, and we pretend this never happened?" The alien's mandibles clicked. "Laughter," the xenologist said. "Defiance. How? Predictable. Every species we've encountered has lasted longer than an hour." Sarah interrupted. "Yeah, we heard. Thing is, you've never encountered anyone quite like us." She nodded to Webb. "Lieutenant, show them what we've been working on." What happened next would echo across the galaxy for generations. 6 weeks earlier, Dr. James Reeves had been laughed out of the UN Strategic Defense Committee. Quantum entanglement weapons. General Kozlov had scoffed, his Russian accent thick with derision. "Doctor, we need practical solutions, not science fiction." James had stood there, rumpled and exhausted, holding his tablet like a shield. He'd spent 3 months developing this theory, running simulations until his eyes bled, and now they were dismissing it like a bad joke. "General, with respect, everything is science fiction until someone builds it. The Xa'thari use linear tactics because they've never needed to evolve beyond them. They overwhelm with numbers. But if we could target their command structure at the quantum level..." If, Kozlov had interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "We have 2 months before they reach Earth. Maybe less. We don't have time for theoretical physics experiments. We need weapons. Real weapons. Not fairy tales." The room had murmured in agreement. James felt his last hope crumbling. Without their backing, without resources, his theory would remain just that, a theory. An Earth would fall like every other world before it. But Sarah Chen had been in that room too. And unlike Kozlov, she'd actually read Reeves' proposal. All 300 pages of it. She'd cornered him in the hallway afterward, her combat boots clicking on the polished floor. "How fast could you build a prototype?" she'd asked without preamble. James had blinked at her, surprised. Commander Chen had a reputation. Brilliant tactician, ruthless when necessary, and completely uninterested in lost causes. You actually read it." "Every word. Twice. The math checks out. It's insane, but it checks out." She'd leaned against the wall, studying him with those sharp dark eyes. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s, with the kind of intensity that came from spending more time with equations than people. His hair was a mess, his shirt wrinkled, and there was a coffee stain on his collar. But his eyes burned with the kind of determination she recognized. "So, how fast?" "With the right team and unlimited resources. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. You've got 2 weeks and whatever resources I can steal without court-martial. Think you can do it?" James had felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe, or desperation, or both. "Give me a team of 10 people who aren't afraid to break physics, and I'll give you a weapon that'll make the Xa'thari wish they'd never heard of Earth." Sarah had smiled then, the kind of smile that suggested she'd been waiting her whole life for someone to say something that crazy. "You've got yourself a deal, Dr. Reeves. Welcome to the most illegal weapons project in human history." The facility they'd commandeered was an old particle accelerator outside Geneva, officially decommissioned 5 years ago after budget cuts. Unofficially, It was perfect for the kind of weapons research that made ethics committees break out in hives. Sarah had assembled a team of 12 people, physicists pulled from universities, engineers yanked from corporate jobs, and one very confused Navy SEAL named Tyler Rodriguez who'd been reassigned from combat duty on Europa. Tyler had said on day one, looking around at the banks of computers and the massive cylindrical structure dominating the facility center, "I'm not sure what you need me for. I shoot things and blow things up. I don't science things." Tyler was 26, built like a brick wall, with a Texas drawl and a grin that had probably gotten him out of trouble more times than it got him into it. He'd earned 3 commendations for valor and had a reputation for creative problem-solving under fire, usually involving excessive amounts of explosives. "You're here because when we test this, someone needs to understand how to use it in combat," Sarah had explained, leading him through the facility. "Plus, you've got combat experience against the Xa'thari probes. You know how they think. They don't think. They just come at you like a tidal wave until you drown in bodies." His expression had darkened. "Lost half my unit on Europa. They just kept coming. Didn't matter how many we dropped." "Exactly. Which is why conventional warfare won't work. We can't outgun them. We can't outlast them." She gestured to James, who was already elbow-deep in a control panel, muttering to himself about resonance frequencies. "Dr. Reeves, explain what we're building." James had looked up, his hair sticking out at odd angles. He had that manic scientist look that Tyler associated with people who accidentally blew themselves up in labs. "Okay, so, you know how quantum entanglement means 2 particles can be connected regardless of distance?" Tyler had nodded slowly. "Like theoretical physics stuff. Particles talking to each other across space." "Exactly. Except it's not talking. It's, never mind, not important. Point is, we're weaponizing it." James had pulled up a holographic display showing the Xa'thari fleet structure. The Xa'thari ships use a centralized command network. Every vessel is connected to their flagship through quantum-encrypted channels. If we can entangle our weapon with their command frequency and then collapse the quantum state in a controlled cascade. In English, document. James had grinned. "We can make their entire fleet think they're somewhere they're not. Mess with their sensors, their weapons targeting, their communications, their navigation, everything. All at once. And the beauty of it is, the effect cascades through their own network. The more ships they have, the worse the chaos becomes." Tyler had whistled low. "That's actually pretty badass. So we're not trying to outgun them. We're trying to make them shoot each other," Sarah had finished. "They're using their own strength against them. I like it. It's sneaky. Humans are good at sneaky." The 2 weeks that followed were a blur of caffeine, calculations, and increasingly creative profanity in 6 different languages. James barely left the facility. Sarah would find him at 3 in the morning, staring at equations on holographic displays with the glazed expression of a man who'd forgotten what sleep was. "You know," she'd said one night, setting down a cup of coffee next to his terminal, "if we survive this, you should probably remember to eat. And sleep. Maybe shower." "Can't," James had muttered, not looking up. His fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up new calculations. "Too close. The quantum resonance keeps destabilizing when we try to scale up to fleet-size operations. If I can just adjust the entanglement frequency by 0.003%. "James." She'd put a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension there. "Take 5 minutes. The math isn't going anywhere." He'd finally looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression had softened. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face, the shadows under his eyes. But she could also see the fierce determination that kept him going. "You're not worried we're going to fail?" "Terrified," she'd admitted, sitting down beside him. "But I've been terrified since Mars colony went dark. Since I watched Titan Station burn on live feed. Since I got the casualty reports from Europa." She'd stared at the coffee in her hands. "At least now I'm terrified while doing something about it instead of just watching humanity die by inches." They'd sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee in the blue glow of the monitors. Around them, The facility hummed with the sound of the accelerator running simulations. Why'd you believe me? James had asked suddenly, when no one else did, when everyone else thought I was crazy. Sarah had considered the question. My dad was a science fiction writer. He used to tell me stories about impossible things, faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, first contact. When I asked him if any of it was real, he'd say, not yet. But the difference between fantasy and reality is just someone willing to try. You were willing to try. That made you either crazy or brilliant, and I was betting on brilliant. Your dad sounds like a smart man. He was. He died on Titan Station when the Xa'thari attacked. He was there for a book signing, of all things. She'd set down her cup, her hand steady despite the emotion in her voice. Survived cancer, 3 divorces, and a near-fatal car crash, only to die because some alien empire decided humanity wasn't worth keeping around. So yeah, I'm motivated. James had reached over and squeezed her hand. His palm was warm, calloused from years of lab work. We're going to make this work, Sarah. Not just for your dad, but for every human who's ever looked at the stars and dreamed of being more than we are. I know, because the alternative isn't an option. By day 10, they had a prototype, a gleaming cylinder of exotic matter and quantum processes that hummed with barely contained energy. By day 12, they'd successfully tested it on a simulation of the Xa'thari command network, watching with satisfaction as the simulated fleet tore itself apart in digital space. By day 14, Tyler had figured out how to deploy it from a modified fighter craft, though the installation had required him to essentially gut the fighter's defensive systems to make room for the quantum generator. So let me get this straight, Tyler had said, looking at the schematics. I fly into the middle of an alien armada, get close enough to their flagship to establish quantum lock, activate this thing, and then fly away really, really fast. That's the basic idea, James had confirmed, and the part where I don't die. We're working on that part. Great. Love it. Sign me up. And then, on day 15, the Xa'thari arrived early. The alert had come at 0347 hours. Sarah had been in her quarters, a converted storage room, trying to catch 2 hours of sleep before the next shift. The klaxons had jolted her awake, her training kicking in before her brain fully engaged. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. She'd sprinted to the command center, still pulling on her jacket. Report. SleepSpace signatures all across the system. Marcus Webb had shouted over the controlled chaos. His hands flew across the tactical console. They're everywhere. At least 3,000 contacts. They are positioning in standard siege formation around Earth. Sarah had felt her stomach drop into her boots. How early? 3 weeks ahead of projections. They must have force-marched their entire fleet. James had appeared at her elbow, looking pale. He'd been in the lab, probably hadn't slept at all. Sarah, we're not ready. The weapon works. The simulations prove that. But we haven't finished the shielding protocols. Whoever deploys it will be exposed to the quantum backlash. Sarah finished, her voice flat. I know. How bad are we talking? Radiation poisoning. Survey. The quantum field will cook them from the inside out. He pulled up a medical projection. Without immediate intervention, we're looking at multiple organ failure within hours. Even with intervention. He trailed off, unable to finish. The room had gone quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. Tyler had stepped forward, his jaw set. I'll do it. Sergeant. With respect, this is what I signed up for. You need someone who can fly, fight, and jury-rig tech under pressure. That's literally my entire job description. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Besides, I've always wanted to be a hero. This is my shot. Sarah had looked at him, this kid who'd volunteered for every dangerous mission, who'd pulled 3 wounded soldiers out of a burning dropship on Europa under heavy fire, who grinned at danger like it was an old friend. He had a family in Austin, a mom who sent care packages, a little sister who wanted to be an astronaut. There has to be another way, she'd said. There isn't. Not in time. Tyler had clapped James on the shoulder. Just make sure your doomsday device actually works. Document. I'd hate to die for dud. James had grabbed his arm, his knuckles white. The shielding will be at 50%. It won't protect you completely, but it might buy you enough time. If we can get you to a medical facility within an hour. Might is good enough for me. Tyler had looked at Sarah, and for just a moment, she saw the fear behind his bravado. But then he squared his shoulders and smiled. Commander, let's go win a war. Which brought them to now, to this moment. To the Xa'thari commander staring at Sarah with what might have been confusion. You dare mock us with your primitive. Primitive? Sarah interrupted, her voice cutting across the comm channel. See, that's your problem. You've spent 1,000 years conquering species that fight like you do. Linear, predictable, overwhelming force against scattered resistance. But humans. She smiled again, and this time it was fierce. We're chaos. We're adaptation. We're the species that looked at every obstacle in our evolutionary history and said, I bet we can find a way around that. And chaos always beats order if you give it half a chance. On the tactical display, a single human fighter, Tyler's fighter, designation Valkyrie 7, broke from Earth's defensive perimeter and streaked toward the Xa'thari fleet like a meteor. The alien commander's mandibles spread in what might have been amusement. One ship. This is your grand strategy. This is how humanity chooses to die. Just watch. Tyler's voice crackled over the comm, steady despite what he was flying into. Approaching optimal deployment range. Doc, your baby better work, because I'm seeing a whole lot of angry aliens out here. James was at the quantum control station, sweating despite the facility's climate control. His fingers danced across controls, monitoring the weapon's power levels. Quantum field is stable. Entanglement lock is locked. Resonance frequency holding at optimal. Tyler, you're good to go. Roger that. Hey, Commander. Tyler's voice softened slightly. If this doesn't work, tell my mom I died doing something really cool. Okay? She always said I'd end up famous or dead, and I'd hate to disappoint her. Sarah's throat tightened. She'd sent people into danger before. It was part of command. But this felt different. This was certain death, traded for a chance at survival. It's going to work, Sergeant. You have my word. I know. Just, covering my bases. A pause. It's been an honor serving with you. All of you. The honor is ours, Sarah said quietly. Okay then. Let's make history. Activating quantum cascade in 3, 2, 1. The quantum weapon deployed with no visible flash, no dramatic explosion, no Hollywood theatrics. Just a subtle ripple in space-time, like heat waves on summer asphalt, spreading out from Tyler's fighter in an invisible wave. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Xa'thari commander leaned forward, its compound eyes glittering. Is this your great weapon? Disappointing. I expected. And then chaos erupted. On the tactical display, the Xa'thari fleet's perfect formation, 1,000 years of military precision, dissolved like sugar in hot water. Ships veered wildly, crashing into each other with the force of small nuclear explosions. Weapons systems activated randomly, targeting systems confused, firing on their own vessels. Energy beams that should have been aimed at Earth instead lanced through Xa'thari hulls. The command network was screaming. Sarah could hear it through the intercepted comms, a digital shriek of confused signals and contradictory orders. Fleet elements, maintain formation, the alien commander was shouting. Cease fire. Cease. Why are you firing on friendly vessels? Respond. All ships respond. But there was no response. Only chaos. Only the quantum cascade doing exactly what it was designed to do, convincing every ship in the fleet that every other ship was the enemy. What is this? The commander demanded, its voice no longer bored, no longer amused. What have you done? What is this weapon? We leveled the playing field, Sarah said calmly, even as her heart raced with a mixture of triumph and terror. See, you rely on perfect coordination, perfect communication, a perfect command structure. We just introduced imperfection into your system at the quantum level. Now your ship sensors are telling them that every other Xa'thari vessel is a hostile contact. Your weapon systems think they are under attack from all sides. Your navigation thinks you're somewhere else entirely. 3,000 warships, all turning on each other in a cascade of friendly fire and navigational disasters. Explosions bloomed across the tactical display like deadly flowers. Impossible. Our systems are quantum encrypted. They cannot be hacked. Oh, we're not hacking them. Sarah leaned toward the screen, her voice hard. We're entangled with them. Your entire fleet is now part of one big quantum system, and we control the collapse. Every ship is seeing what we want it to see. And right now, we want them to see enemies everywhere. The alien commander stared at her, and for the first time, Sarah saw something in those compound eyes that she recognized. Fear. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah continued. You're going to order a full retreat. Right now, pull your ships back, disengage from our system, and go home. And then you're going to go back to your empire and tell every species you've ever conquered that Earth said hello. Tell them that the humans, those primitive, insignificant humans, just handed you your first defeat in 1,000 years. This is not over, the commander hissed. We will return. We will adapt. We will. Yeah, and we'll be ready, Sarah interrupted. That's what humans do. We adapt faster than you can imagine. So you can come back if you want. But ask yourself, if we did this in 2 weeks with limited resources and our backs against the wall, what do you think we'll come up with if you give us a year? 5 years? A decade? The alien commander stayed at her for a long moment. In the background, more explosions lit up space as the Xa'thari fleet continued to tear itself apart. Ships were retreating now, fleeing the quantum cascade, trying to get out of range before the chaos consumed them too. Finally, the commander spoke, its voice quiet. You are dangerous. More dangerous than we anticipated. We're survivors, Sarah corrected. Big difference. Now get out of our system before we show you what else we've been working on. The connection cut. The war room erupted in cheers. People were hugging, crying, laughing with the manic energy of those who'd stared death in the face and lived to tell about it. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, with a weapon built in 2 weeks from theory and desperation. They'd actually done it. But Sarah was already moving toward the hangar bay. Tyler's fighter had made it back, barely. The autopilot had brought it in. Tyler himself was unconscious, slumped in the cockpit. The cockpit canopy was bathed in quantum radiation, visible as a faint blue glow that made Sarah's radiation detector scream. They pulled him out carefully, his flight suit charred and smoking. His skin was already showing signs of severe radiation burns, mottled with purple bruises where blood vessels had burst. His breathing was shallow, labored. Did it work? He managed to ask as they loaded him onto a stretcher, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah gripped his hand, not caring about the radiation exposure. You saved Earth, you magnificent crazy bastard. The whole fleet is running scared. Tyler smiled weakly, blood on his teeth. Cool. Totally worth it. Tell my mom. Tell her I went out like a boss. You're not going anywhere, Sarah said fiercely. That's an order, Sergeant. James appeared beside her, carrying a medical kit with a strange device attached, all glowing crystals and quantum processors. This might work. I modified the quantum shielding to function as a cellular regenerator. It should be able to reverse the damage at the molecular level. But Sarah, it's completely untested. If the quantum field destabilizes inside his body. Do it, Sarah said immediately. Sarah, if this fails, it could make things worse. He could. It won't fail. Not today. We don't get to lose anyone else today. She looked at James and saw her own desperation reflected back at her. You already did the impossible once. Do it again. James nodded, his hands surprisingly steady despite the fear in his eyes. He activated the device, and a soft blue glow, different from the radiation, purer, enveloped Tyler's body. For a moment, nothing happened. Tyler's vitals continued to drop. The medical staff was preparing emergency intervention. Then Tyler gasped, his eyes flying open. Whoa, that's actually working. I can feel it, like someone's putting me back together from the inside out. He looked at James with wonder. Doc, you're a freaking miracle worker. The quantum field is repairing cellular damage at the molecular level, James breathed, watching the medical readouts in amazement. It's identifying damaged cells and entangling them with healthy templates, forcing a quantum collapse that favors the healthy state. It's actually working. It's science, Sarah supplied, smiling through the tears she didn't realize she'd been crying. Yeah, science. Beautiful, impossible science. 3 hours later, Tyler was stable and recovering in the medical bay, flirting shamelessly with the nurses despite having nearly died. The Xa'thari fleet had completely withdrawn from the system, leaving behind only debris and the lingering quantum signature of their defeat. And Earth's first true victory in the war was spreading across the surviving colonies like wildfire. Sarah found James on the observation deck, staring out at the stars through the reinforced windows. "Can't sleep?" she asked, joining him. "Keep thinking about what comes next." He didn't look away from the view. Earth hung below them, blue and green and alive. They'll be back eventually, with countermeasures, analysis teams. They'll study what we did, figure out how to defend against it. Then we'll come up with countermeasures. And they'll adapt, and we'll adapt. That's the game now. She stood beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. But we changed the equation today, James. We proved that humanity doesn't have to play by their rules. We can write our own. We got lucky, James said quietly. If they'd arrived even 1 day earlier. But they didn't, and that's what matters. She turned to face him. You did good today. Really, really good. You saved the world with math and stubbornness. That's pretty incredible. We did good. All of us. He turned to look at her, and there was something vulnerable in his expression. Sarah, when I thought Tyler might not make it, when I realized that if the Xa'thari had arrived even a day earlier, we might not have finished the weapon, I started thinking about all the things I'd never said, never done. James, let me finish, please. He took a breath. Life's too short for regrets. We just proved that. And I've been meaning to tell you that I think you're remarkable. Not just as a commander, but as a person. You believe in impossible things. You bet everything on a crazy scientist with a theory. You make me want to be better than I am. He ran a hand through his hair, nervous. And when this is over, if we survive, if there is an after, I'd really like to take you to dinner. Somewhere without quantum weapons or alien invasions. Maybe just Italian food and bad wine and talking about something other than how to save humanity. Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest, melting the ice that had been there since Mars' colony burned. Dr. Reeves, are you asking me out? In the middle of an interstellar war. I'm saying that we just prove humans can do anything if we're stubborn enough, including finding happiness in the darkest times. He smiled, and it transformed his face from exhausted scientist to something younger, more hopeful. So yes, I'm asking you out. She kissed him then, soft and quick but full of promise. His lips were warm, tasting like coffee and hope. Then I accept. But you're buying. I just spent our entire defense budget on your doomsday device. Worth every penny. They stood together, watching Earth rotate peacefully below, still blue and green and whole. Behind them, the facility hummed with the sound of engineers already working on the next generation of defenses. Somewhere in the medical bay, Tyler was probably already planning his next reckless act of heroism. And across the solar system, humanity was waking up to the news that they'd won. Not just survived. Won. The Xa'thari had said humanity wouldn't last a day. They'd lasted 1 hour and changed everything. The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of engineering, a massive sphere suspended in space, its walls transparent to show the stars beyond. Representatives from 200 species sat in concentric circles around the speaking platform, a rainbow of alien physiologies and cultures. Several of those species had been freed from Xa'thari rule in the months following Earth's victory, as the Empire's grip weakened and rebellion spread like wildfire. Sarah stood at the podium, no longer just a commander but Earth's first ambassador to the larger galaxy. She wore a formal uniform, medals she'd never expected to earn gleaming on her chest. James was beside her, now head of Human Defense Research and Innovation. Tyler, fully recovered and sporting a promotion to captain, stood at attention behind them, looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. The Xa'thari delegation sat in the back, diminished and quiet. Only 20 representatives where once there would have been hundreds. Their empire was crumbling, species after species choosing freedom over subjugation. Members of the council, Sarah began, her voice carrying across the chamber through translators. 6 months ago, humanity was given a choice, surrender or die. We chose neither. Instead, we chose to fight, not just for our survival, but for the right of all species to determine their own fate. She gestured, and a holographic display bloomed above the platform. The quantum weapons deployment, the Xa'thari fleet's chaos, Earth standing defiant. The quantum disruption technology we developed wasn't just a weapon. It was a statement that says no empire, no matter how powerful, no matter how ancient, can stand against the ingenuity and determination of people who refuse to give up. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber in a dozen languages. We're not asking to join your council as conquerors. We're not asking to replace one empire with another. Sarah's voice was strong, clear. We're asking to join as partners, as allies, as friends who've learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Because that's what humans do best. We build bridges where others see only walls. We find hope where others see only despair. She paused, looking around the chamber. The Xa'thari taught us something valuable. They taught us that the galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. But we taught them something too. We taught them that there's always someone willing to stand up to bullies. Always someone willing to fight for what's right, no matter the odds. The vote was called. Sarah held her breath. Unanimous. As they left the chamber, Tyler nudged James. So, document. What are you working on now? Another doomsday device. Because I have some ideas about. Actually, I'm working on quantum communication networks. Instant communication across any distance. Imagine what the galaxy could accomplish if every world could talk to every other world in real time. Scientific collaboration, cultural exchange, early warning systems for threats. Going from weapons to peace tech. I like it. Tyler grinned. Very redemption arc of you. Sarah took Jamesy's hand as they walked through the corridors of the council station, Tyler trailing behind them making jokes about being a third wheel. He's right. You know, you're going to change the galaxy. Again. We're going to change it, James corrected. Together. All of us. Behind them, visible through the station's windows, Earth hung in space. Small, blue, and unbroken. A planet that had been underestimated. A species that had been dismissed as primitive and insignificant. They'd said humanity wouldn't last a day. Humanity had lasted 1 hour and changed everything. And the galaxy would never be the same.